Lorraine Heskin of the Gourmet Food Parlour, you are very welcome to the Lead Well podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. And what's interesting is I often find sometimes the guests that come on the show, it can be quite serendipitous. So a couple of weeks back, we asked Dan, myself and James asked Dan, who's been in the studio that you reckon would be a really good fit for the podcast? And he obviously recommended yourself. But what was interesting was at the same time, my wife, who's a business studies teacher, was attending the annual conference. And she said, Mark, there's a person speaking, delivering the keynote. You've got to have them on the podcast. And funny enough, it was yourself.
That's so nice. Thank you. Wow.
Did you enjoy that day, the conference? Yeah,
I did. Look, it's always a pleasure to be able to speak about your business and a privilege to be able to do so. But particularly to teachers who teach that subject, and their understanding of running a business is phenomenal. The questions at the end were amazing. The energy in the room, it was magic. So look, I really appreciate that. That's really nice to hear. And thank you, Dan.
I'm sure you'll also be happy to know that what they're doing at that level in terms of entrepreneurship now for students is just incredible. Like so many different initiatives. There's no doubt that as the decades go on, we'll have more and more incredible male and female entrepreneurs coming out of Ireland.
And hope so. And I think it's so important to mould and educate students from a young age, particularly on that entrepreneurial journey, because we don't all follow the same path. And I really feel very strongly about people not having to conform with the norm of thinking, I have to go to college and I have to go and get a job and I've got to work 9 to 5. Well, you don't,
No.
And if you've got that spirit in you, there's nothing wrong with, maturing it from when you're in school and knowing that path is there for you as well. I think that's really important. So it's so good to hear all of that.
Yeah, and you strike me as somebody who's very much been led by passion, very much being led by a passion for what you want to do. I'm interested to even just explore that to start. Where has that drive come from to not follow the conventional path, but actually say to yourself, no, I've got an interest. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to move in this direction.
Well, look, I wish there was an easy answer to that question. But I mean, I feel I needed to go down the path that I did up to the particular point where I decided that I wanted to have my own business. I feel like that was really, really important for me. And that was going to university and maybe doing a course that I just thought, yeah, I'll just do this and let's just, see how the next few years go. Nothing wrong with that. Didn't love it, but liked it.
Yeah.
Moved on and then did a course after that in business where I think that is where I found my spark. I absolutely went, oh, I love this. I love the topics. I love the nature. And I mean, I went from being somebody who was a bit meh, to somebody who was like Monica from Friends. I know, and that was me. And I fell in love with that whole course. And I feel like I found myself. Then I went to work for IBM, which was an amazing experience. And like the opportunities that I had there was amazing. Worked in various different departments. You're working in manufacturing, you're working in a big corporate business. So you're learning about etiquette, professionalism, how you carry yourself, speaking in front of people. So all of those experiences are so important in that path for your life, for your career. And then I went to America, and I mean, that's really where I found myself. I feel like I just was destined to go there my whole entire life. I always say if I could live 2 lives, I'd live one in Ireland and then I'd live another one in America. I adored it as a country, as people, as a nation, everything. I just thought it was fabulous. And I just found an industry over there that I just love so much. And I don't know what it was. Their love of life was just something that I think was maybe hiding inside me. And then, I mean, they work, they live to work. They work hard in America. Yeah. They have very few holidays. They work so hard. But it's extremely rewarding if you find something that you love. And I was very lucky to find something that I absolutely loved over there. And then it kind of helped me on that continuous journey towards deciding that I wanted to have my own business. And I decided in America, okay, I think this is a time where, I think I'd like to have my own business. And I had thought about it a lot over the years, but definitely when I was there, I worked in food. I found food. I'm not a qualified chef, but I loved the whole, the deli scene and the restaurants and the customer service and all of that aspect in America. And everything was so positive, Hi, I'm Lorraine and I'm going to be your server and have a great day. And all those little things to me, I was like, oh my God, this is just so positive. So I loved all of that. And I think all those little sparks along the way helped me to decide to go and take the plunge eventually.
And fast forward like 19, 20 years now, you've been running your business.
Yeah.
You mentioned something on another podcast that I was listening to around your experience of the Entrepreneur of the Year program. And one thing that really brought to life for you was the importance of mentors and peers who are at a similar level in terms of their journey. And what's interesting, why that stood out to me was I did research recently, about a year and a half ago, with CEOs. I interviewed CEOs. And it's a pity I didn't know yourself at the time. I certainly would have had you, hopefully, as part of that research. But one thing that came out of that research was I was looking to try and find what are the key aspects that have helped them through their journey as a CEO or a business owner. And without a doubt, most of them said having a good mentor and having a peer group that I can engage with on a regular basis. Because we know it can be quite lonely, right? So talk to me a little bit about that experience of that Entrepreneur of the Year program, but what I suppose the big insight for you as part of that was around the value of mentorship, of peers at a similar stage in their journey.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting area for any entrepreneur. And it's the one thing that as I've kind of, I suppose, progressed through my time as being a business owner, I feel very strongly about giving back and helping people to not make the same mistakes that I made. I didn't have a mentor at the beginning. What I did was I spoke to some people and I said, how's it going? What's your business like? And what do I need to do?
Informal.
And, very informal, but with no plan around it. And I just really got on with it. I mean, I got on with it. When I look back now, I'd love to have had somebody more of a mentor by my side, somebody more senior who could have held me more accountable for what I was doing. But that just wasn't a thing at the time, or maybe it wasn't a thing in my world. The Entrepreneur of the Year program was, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the best things that has ever happened to me as a person, as a female entrepreneur, and just for my future. It was just incredible. Nothing could have prepared me for the positive journey that I was about to undertake. And I don't say that lightly. I think, first of all, the fellow finalists that I was blessed to be with in 2023 were just exceptional. We have become such an incredible group of friends, fellow business people and supporters of one another. But I think I suppose on a personal level, it has helped me to really see how valuable it is to be vulnerable around people.
Yeah.
And to not say, how's everything? Everything's great. Everything's great. It's not. It's not great all the time. Yeah. And it's okay to say that it's not great. In fact, it's better to say that it's not great, because you'll learn more and you'll gain more trust and respect from people. Because being a business owner is a very, very lonely job. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It really, really is. And people rely on you. There's a huge responsibility there. And you've got to have a certain strength for the people around you. And that is a privilege. And it's a pleasure. But it's also a huge responsibility for you as a person. There's a lot of stress involved in that. But it's how you manage it. And I think surrounding yourself with like-minded people is most definitely a way to manage it, and talking to each other about how your journey is going. And everybody's going to be at a different stage of their journey along the way. And that is, I think that's inspirational as you talk to people who are at a different stage to you, so you can continue to aspire to work towards something, and or you hopefully inspire somebody else as well in your journey along the way. So it's been magical, and it's a networking thing for me in terms of, we meet regularly through that whole Entrepreneur of the Year program, and there's an alumni group that is just, you can put up a question in our WhatsApp group and you get an answer at the click of a finger. There's always somebody there to help. There's always somebody there to support, and there's always somebody there to bring you along the way, or vice versa. And I think that has been a game changer for me, not just in terms of confidence of where my business is going, but even just in helping me to continue my path of aspiration for Gourmet Food Parlour and where I wanted to continue to grow, and giving me new ideas and ways of doing things and just options. And I mean, all of those things encompassing, I mean, it's just been such a positive experience. It's been incredible.
And you mentioned the word vulnerability there. I think the misconception when you're put in a room of successful entrepreneurs is, okay, I've got to now put my best foot forward. But as you've described there, you're not going to get the best out of this unless you can actually be quite open, honest, and vulnerable in that situation.
Yeah.
When you went into that initially, because you strike me as someone who is not afraid to be really honest, not afraid to be candid. Was that your approach when you stepped in? You were saying, I'm going to be vulnerable, I'm going to share, or was there an element of, okay, I've got to really understand the room here first before I really open up?
I don't even think I had a plan, to be honest. I was just like, I had real imposter syndrome around it. I really did. Yeah. And it's actually something that helped me to get rid of that imposter syndrome, was being part of that group, which is really interesting. Because I don't think that anybody who has their own business should ever have imposter syndrome. And it's actually something that I've learned to help people as I mentor people myself and work with people and just be around people, is to make sure that nobody feels that way. And that was of my own doing. That was nobody else. Yeah. That was me thinking, I'm not good enough. I don't have a big enough business. I don't. But as I got stronger into the program, it made me realize it's not about my turnover. It's not about, who I am or what my business is. Well, it is about who I am. It's about, it's about being part of this, and it's about being proud of my journey and the people who have been on this journey with me along the way. And that is always the most important thing. Proud of my brand that I've worked so hard to build over the last almost 20 years, and realizing that. And I suppose maybe taking a moment to be proud of that, because I am definitely a business owner that does not go, oh my God, we're so amazing. I tell all the teams that they're amazing all the time. But if someone pays me a compliment, I'm nearly like mortified, because I'm like, I'm not finished. No. Don't compliment me yet. No, not yet. Maybe in another 20 years' time. But that's just who I am. I'm extremely grounded, and I'm very proud of that. But in that program, I think when I went to Singapore, we went to Singapore as part of the beginning of the program as finalists. And as part of that, you have to get up on stage and you have to pitch your business when you're away. And you get a certain amount of time, and you got to, cover all the bases, and you want to come across really well. And the judges are there, and the alumni are there, and everyone's there. And I remember my pitch was at the very end of the week. Typical. So, I was building this up, as we were going on through the week. And I suppose I wanted to do myself justice, the business, but particularly the team in Gourmet Food Parlour. I always want to do them proud. I'm representing them, and they work so hard for the brand and for the business and with me. And I take that very seriously. So anyway, I remember I went up on stage, and for whatever reason it was, that particular morning, the pitches, it was packed. And there was people standing at the back. And I remember going, oh my, what am I doing here? Like, why am I here? And I started off saying, my name is, and I'm well able to speak, and then I just said, what, now I just need a second. I said on the stage, I just need a second. And I just said 60 seconds, and everyone started clapping and clapping. And I thought, I just need a second now. And I took 60 seconds, and then I went for it. Anyway, it went really well. Brilliant. And it was great. But I think that was a bit of a turning point for me on that program. And it made me realize, my goodness, this is a special group of people. And this is a special opportunity for me. And let's do it. Let's make the most of it. So, from then on, it's just been a phenomenal experience. Yeah, it's been brilliant.
I really like as well how you have framed that in terms of your mindset in a situation like that you are representing the team. Because again, that's going to help you in that situation. You're getting out of your own head. You're thinking about the fact that I'm standing up here representing a group of people who are showing up day in, day out for me and the business, etc. You mentioned the word there, imposter syndrome. And I have the pleasure of working with a lot of female leaders. And one thing that we work on quite a lot is this idea of, removing hedging language, unapologetic or apologetic language, right? Very much downplaying their skills because they feel like they're coming across as maybe arrogant in a situation. But what you generally tend to find is that individuals get to a certain point of their career and they basically get there based on technical ability. But in order to go further, you have to be able to influence people. And the way you can influence is obviously by being able to sell yourself or tell the story around why you're the best candidate for the role. Very hard to do that if in your mind you're thinking, I'm going to sound arrogant, or there's an element, which we all have, of this aspect of imposter syndrome. So this is maybe not just a female related question for leaders that I would work with. This is probably for leaders across the board. How did you go about, I suppose, transitioning from a period of time where maybe it was imposter, maybe I'll sound arrogant, to transitioning to, oh no, this is actually something that I have to get comfortable doing because it's going to obviously impact myself, my business, the people who work in my team. I'd be curious just to explore how you...
Oh, that's a brilliant question. And I think what I would say to you is I worked on myself. So it has to come from within. You know, your imposter syndrome comes from within if you have it. But it also, your confidence comes from within. And I think as a very proud business owner, but also a mom and a friend and a wife and a sister and a daughter and all of those things, there's a huge responsibility to be there for everybody. And the way that I know I can be there for everybody is to work on myself. And the way that I work on myself is to take time for myself, not just socially, which I'm well able to do, but just physically, just be working out and, you know, walking, running, going to the gym, lifting weights, whatever it is I do now. They're all things that have helped me an awful lot because that helps the mind. And I think when your mind is positive and your mind is confident, I think you can achieve anything. But I also will very strongly say you surround yourself with good people. You surround yourself with people in business and in life who are going to help you to achieve your goals while you help them achieve theirs. And I think I have the most incredible team. And I will say this probably a million times to you. I have the most incredible team. They never cease to amaze me how much they love working for Gourmet Food Parlour, what they do every day, and they inspire me. So I have a responsibility to continue to be the best version of me for them and for our customers and for the people who are in my life. So when I started to realize that, that helped me massively, massively. But also, it never ceases to amaze me also how when I go in different business circles, how people know Gourmet Food Parlour, you know, because I would always say, you know, oh, I own a business called Gourmet Food Parlour. Have you ever heard of it? They're like, oh my God, I go to, you know, and everyone's reaction is so positive. And that is a really beautiful thing. And how can you have nothing but just love and, you know, and more ambition for what you're doing when you have those kind of reactions? And there's such huge positivity towards what we do as a business in business circles. And I suppose being exposed to the whole EY alumni and the group of business owners within that has helped me see that massively. And I've worked with so many amazing brands and we've collabed on so many great things. And, you know, between, you know, like Gunpowder Gin and Kyo's Crisps. And we've done, like, this is our third Christmas now doing a collab with Kyo's on our Christmas sandwich, which is our #1 bestseller. Let me get that out there. You know, and it's just been magic. It's just been magic. And I'm so proud that we're in a position to be able to do that. And there's just so many positives that come out of all of that. And I do think your mindset, focusing on your mindset, you know, is really, really important as well. Is my glass half full or is my glass half empty? And that may sound like a very simple analogy, but it does translate to something very strong in life. And look, we've all gone through highs and lows. We all go through highs and lows, but it's how we get out of the lows, how we help ourselves to get out of the lows. That's really important.
That's great advice. And it's funny, you mentioned Kyo's. I know Tom very well. I'm trying to get him on the podcast, so maybe this might seal it when he sees that you've been on. No, I couldn't agree more. It's a proactive process, you know, these routines that you have every day, and it's constantly, you know, making sure that you keep them going, because even at times when you feel you're so squeezed, you can drop those different things. You could fit in another hour of work. All of a sudden, that level of productivity and even that level of love that you have for the work that you do, if you're not prioritizing yourself in that mix, all of a sudden that decreases massively.
It does. And you see that, you know, you see that. And a lot of times, you know, when you have your own business, you're working all the time, you know, because people will ask me questions like, you know, are you taking a holiday? Do you switch off? Do you turn off your phone? Do you? And they're all very valid questions, by the way.
Yeah.
But I think everybody will have their own answer, because everyone will do whatever they feel they need to do for themselves and for their business, you know, and that's okay too. I talked about conforming with the norm at the very beginning of this podcast. You know, not everybody has to follow the same path.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You have to do what you feel is right for you, and be happy with that.
Yeah. And I agree. And, you know, speaking as a business owner myself, for me, it's always been about integration. How do I integrate my work, which I love, with my family, which I love, and my hobbies, which I love? So to your point of the holiday, you know, my wife will know that I will be checking emails, but I'm not checking emails and going, oh my God. But friends will say to me, oh, you're checking emails on your holidays. God, that must be a nightmare. It's actually not, because I'm seeing amazing things come true, and I'm just keeping an eye on it. But do I feel rested and well recovered and relatively stress-free when I'm on a holiday? Absolutely, I do. So again, it's, as you say, it's your own path. And for me, it's not about separating work and life. It's about how they integrate, how they feed one another. And I feel after 12 years, I've got to a good, and by the way, I would also say I've only got to that point because of the amazing people that I have in the business. They've helped me get to that point because they've taken certain levels of responsibility. But it's just interesting because I think when people hear that, you know, aspects like answering an email on a holiday, sometimes it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. No. Yeah.
Well, I relax when I know that things are done. Yeah. So if I read emails, I'll relax. And that may sound crazy, but that's who I am. That's what it is. Yeah. I'll go, okay, that's done. That's great. That's all going well. Oh, look, they had a brilliant day. Whew, you know.
Yeah. It doesn't sound crazy to me now, but some people listening might think we're both crazy, but you listen.
That's okay. I am a bit crazy.
One thing I'd love to talk about with yourself, Lorraine, would be, you seem to be able to keep people in your business, right? You know, people want to stay in Gourmet Food Parlour. They're building careers in Gourmet Food Parlour. Not only in your industry is it hard to hold on to staff, and attrition levels can be quite high, but I think we're seeing that right across the board now. There's a talent war. Individuals are not necessarily saying, hey, I want to stay here for the rest of my career. They're saying, okay, this can be a chapter in my career book, and I'm going to keep moving around. Yeah. But I know you've mentioned stories of people who started with your organization and started in a certain role, and they have grown. And, you know, they've grown over nearly 2 decades with the business. Could you share any insights into how you have managed to achieve that with individuals?
Well, I think there's a lot about culture. You know, the culture of respect is really, really important. But I think like bringing people along the journey with you is vitally important, and making them proud to work not just for the business, but for the brand. I think it's really important to give people opportunities to know that there's a ladder there for growth and for development for their careers. Not everybody is ambitious and driven, and that's okay. But one of the things I like to do is when people join the business, you know, and I get to know them, and, you know, and I'm talking to them, I say, you know, where have you come from, and where do you want to go? And if somebody will come up to me, or even if I ask them and they tell me and they say, oh, I want to be in your position, you know, someday. And I go, love that. Oh, I love it. Love it. And I'm saying, be careful now what you tell me, because I said, you know, I'll help you get there. But if you find somebody that has those special qualities, you know, that work ethic, and that doesn't mean working 100 hours a week. That means the value and the productivity that they put into their job every day, the work ethic, how much they care, how they treat their colleagues, how they bring the best version of themselves to work every day, how they create to the culture, and how much they care about the brand. And you know, and that is thinking outside the box. That is not just coming in and doing your job every day, which, yes, you know, is important, but it's also going the extra mile. I love people who go the extra mile. I've got an idea. I have an idea. Can I talk to you for a second? What about this? Love it. Love it. So bring all that on. I love all of that. I'm very, very lucky, and I don't say that lightly, that I have had people with me along this journey nearly 20 years, which we're 20 years in business next year, which I still can't believe I'm old enough to say that. But anyway, and like Joanna, my finance manager, has been with me 18 years. You know, that's incredible. Michael Mazur, my executive chef, 17 years.
Wow.
And I remember he came in and he was working in our restaurant in Swords. And one of the guys said, I know somebody who can come in, you know, and I think he'll be really good. So anyway, Adam, another guy who's with me a long time, he brought him in. And I remember thinking, this is a special person. Like these two together can achieve amazing things. And he was just exceptional. And he still smiles like a Cheshire cat every time I see him. He is as happy in his job now. And he deserves the job that he has. He's phenomenal. And like, the success of Gourmet Food Parlour is down to all of these. I could talk about individuals. We could do 10. We could do a whole series of staff. Which I mean, I feel so lucky to be able to say that. I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint. We are all on this journey together. We respect one another. There's highs, there's lows. It's a difficult industry we're in. It's a very low margin business. We have to work very strong together to keep it going. And particularly as we continue to grow, economies of scale can be very positive, but I continue to, seriously invest in the business as I continue to go along and invest in the brand and invest in people. And that is the most important thing to me. But, you know, people like Michael, like Adam, like Ruth, who's also in our finance department, she came in as a waitress, worked to a supervisor, worked to a restaurant manager, headed up our catering division, moved into finance. There's a career path for you. She's a phenomenal girl. I mean, Robbie is probably the guy that I talked about before, you know, and he was a kitchen porter in Dunleary, and he came in and he didn't speak very much English. And I remember I went into the kitchen and I'm always going, you know, how are you? And nice to meet you and welcome to our team. And, you know, he was so nervous. Oh, he was so nervous. But we had an event in one of our restaurants in Malahide on Sunday night. We hosted the Dublin ladies senior football team. They got their All-Ireland medals in our restaurant. And what a magic night that was. But I gave him a lift to the dart station afterwards. And he said to me in the car on the way over, there was another chef in the back and they were getting the dart home. And he said to me, you know, this lady, and I've been working for her. And I said, Robbie, I'm so lucky to have you. And what a brilliant job you did tonight. And he said, no, I'm the lucky one. And I went, no. It was like, no. You know, and I think it's when you find that touch point with staff, like he's 16 years in the company. Wow. And the work that he's doing now, he's on the culinary executive chef team. I mean, isn't that amazing? From that day when I met him to where he has worked, that's credit to him and who he is as a person.
But it's also credit to your environment, like what you've created to allow people. Like there's obviously the two aspects of it, but the environment that obviously he found himself in has allowed him to do that as well. Yeah, well, he deserves it and everyone deserves it. Like I could talk about staff all day. Like we've over 300 staff now. So that's the magic of the business. Yeah. It is the magic of the brand is the people. Yeah. Is the people. And if I achieve nothing else but just an eclectic, amazing, phenomenal group of people in the business, then that's fine by me. And you know what I think is really interesting? There'll be people listening to this podcast and they will say, your type of business needs that, right? Your type of business needs, it's driven by people, right? And absolutely it needs it. Same way my business needs it, right? But I also think it's a little bit of for particular industries at the moment, what I'm seeing is that we are moving away from that. So we are devaluing those aspects of how we make the people feel in the business. And it may be because we have a product or we have software that we sell and ultimately, you know, the people can be removed from that process. But my, let's say, academically and experience-based business thrive when people are happy, when people feel invested, when people feel engaged. And I'm seeing a trend of large organizations moving away from that being the focus. Now, we know it's very volatile out there at the moment, you know, geopolitically. But I think we're in danger of forgetting the key role that people actually play, our people play in business and how important it is for us to nurture their career growth, invest in them, not just financially, but, you know, with your time, you know, recognition, all of these things, all of these words that we love to throw around. I see that they're living and breathing in your organization, but I am seeing trends in other organizations where this is no longer being seen as a real priority?
I think there's a lot of pressure on people. There's an awful lot of pressure on people now. It's, working can be stressful. And is it your commute to work? Is it, how long you spend at work? Are you expected to work overtime? Can you afford to cover all your outgoings based on your income? And as employers, we are responsible for providing a certain environment for staff when they come to work. It's a challenge for me within our organisation because I don't have one building where everybody works in the same place. I've got 14 different buildings. So the most important thing for me and for the team is to ensure that as a senior management team, that culture is I suppose copy and pasted to every single unit. And that can be difficult and can be challenging, but that's our responsibility. And I feel I can see the value of giving a compliment to somebody and what it does for someone. So from my responsibility as the owner, it's very important to me. You see someone doing something good, you tell them. You see someone in the morning, morning, how are you? How are you today? And have a little chat with them. That goes a long way. You walk into a restaurant, you walk around the floor. How are you doing? How was your day? And, how are all the customers today? That's so important. How's everybody? Into the kitchen. Hi, everyone. Like those little things are so important. Because you know what? I'd want someone to do that to me.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I started working when I was 16 years of age. I worked in Rocha Stores. Don't know if anyone remembers Rocha Stores. But I started working in Rocha Stores. One of the best jobs I ever had. And I was in every department from men's shoes to curtains to cosmetics to the supermarket. I worked everywhere. And I loved going to work every day. So I had that foundation from when I was young of just this positive environment of, people loving what they did, having the crack, having a bit of fun, but also doing our job and taking it seriously. So I think I was lucky to have, been introduced to that from a very young age. And I've always felt in my life, that, yes, of course, there's always going to be serious moments, but we do need to, how we bring ourselves, how we show up every day is really important, how we carry ourselves. And I will always say to the team, we're on stage every day. We're on stage every single day. Yeah. Doesn't matter if we're in a restaurant or not. So it's how we carry ourselves, how we make other people feel, when they leave you, unless you're having a very serious meeting now, about something, which can have to happen, from time to time, but how we make people feel. That's really important.
Yeah. And by the way, that environment that you're describing, I think when you have that type of environment, those serious conversations have to happen less and less.
Yeah.
Because you're creating an atmosphere where people do feel like they can, grab you for a quick conversation or, you're noticing it yourself. You're seeing it before it festers and becomes, you're being able to notice it, or also making your line managers, aware, hey, I'm noticing this over here. And all of a sudden now, those really difficult conversations that we dread, they happen less and less because we've created an environment where we catch it early, we talk it out, we try to resolve it, we move on.
Oh,
not that it can always be resolved, but it's the ability to be able to catch it early and be able to then address it in the right way.
And that's a really important point, because even as the years have gone by, I have noticed my ability to be able to remove negativity is far stronger now than it ever has been. And I would always have been reluctant to remove negativity, which is why I said earlier on, surround yourself with good people who all have the good intentions for the same goal. Yeah. Because you'll always spot someone who doesn't have that intention, either anymore or at all. And in a business, that negativity, that one bit of negativity or two or three can drag a business down. And I think as a business owner, you have an immense responsibility to handle that as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Not easy.
No.
Not easy, but you need to. You need to.
I agree. There's an interesting, a great individual academically, Charles Handy, died last year, but he's an Irish born, and he contributed a ton of research towards organizational psychology and development and behavior, right? And one thing that's really interesting is he talks about this idea of the S curve, right? And the S curve, I don't know if you've come across that before.
No.
But it's a great model for thinking about where is your business, your industry, where are you as an individual on your S curve? So are you experiencing, let's say, an upward trajectory. So you're being pushed outside your comfort zone, right? It feels a bit challenging, but ultimately, you know you're growing as a result. And then there's, let's say, the mature phase. You've overcome that. You feel like you're the king of the castle. Think Nokia in the noughties, right? Before obviously smartphones were invented, right? But then he also talked about this idea of being able to be really honest with yourself around when you are starting to decline, right? Whether it's you as an individual, you're not progressing in the work that you do, your business, or maybe there's an opportunity for you to diversify your business. You obviously see him both individually and as the owner of Gourmet Food Parlour, being very good at noticing where you are on that S-curve, when you have to diversify. I'm just curious to explore that with you, how you've approached that, your ability to, let's say, take calculated risks.
Yeah, I mean, risks don't bother me at all. No, they don't. You know what bothers me is when I take the risk, making sure that it works out okay. I don't know. I suppose there's something in me, and I've had this since the very beginning, since I set up Gourmet Food Parlour, is I'm happy to take the risk. And even as I continue on, but I know in my gut what's right and what's wrong. I've walked away from deals that people would probably say, "What? Did you walk away from that?" Yes, I did. Because I didn't think it was right. I didn't think it was right. So I go with my gut, which is like a cliche, but I'm telling you, it has bode me well thus far. But I also think, like we're in a really, I suppose, ever-changing industry. Hospitality is very demanding, and rightly so. It's a customer service-based industry, and it is our responsibility as a business to provide the best that we can in terms of food, atmosphere, customer service, how we carry ourselves as a brand. I always say if somebody stands outside a Gourmet Food Parlour, they see the brand, that they say, that's a great business. That's run by good people. And we can see that's an Irish grassroots grown business. And I want people to know that. And I want people to feel that about the brand. But it's changed so much from when I started. 2006, I started as a cafe. It wasn't a restaurant business, no catering. I was doing sandwiches, salads, antipasti. I was selling specialty food off the shelf. And I remember the furniture guy delivered in 10 tables and he said, "I'll be delivering in another 10 because you'll be removing those shelves now and you'll be putting another 10 tables in." And I said, "Oh." And he was so right. I rang him and I said, "Oh, Kieran, can I have 10 more tables?" Because that's where you are going to make your turnover, which is all part of the journey of learning. But then, I just started the business. The recession hit. It was the Celtic Tiger came to an absolute fall, fell off a cliff, and I was about to open a second unit and I knew I needed to diversify after I opened that one. And that was the one just down the road here in Swords. And I could see that consumer spending was reducing. And at all those different intervals over the years, it's fascinating to me. You're watching your trends, you're watching your figures, you're watching your financials. But you're comparing. Like I compare, what were my sales this week versus last week? What were my sales this week versus this week last year? What were my sales this week versus this week 5 years ago? And you see where the trends are going and you need to be all over it. Your statistical analysis, vital. What's my number one bestseller last week? Well, it was the Christmas sandwich. But, what was it this time last year? Was it the Christmas sandwich or was it, the roast or was it our quesadillas or was it, what was it? Very important to see what customers are looking for. Are the trends still going in that same direction? And that has helped me a lot over the years and for sure helped me to understand where I need to bring the business because the brand has diversified massively in that we started as a cafe business, but we're a restaurant business that opens 7 days a week. Some restaurants are open for breakfast, brunch, lunch and dinner. We also do takeaway. You can buy our food online. And then we have a catering division in Dublin and we have just recently, very proudly opened our catering division in Galway. And we've launched that and that's been going really, really well for us. I'm super excited about that. And My hometown makes me even prouder to be able to say that. So it's been magic. But, you know, we've really diversified. But what we've done is we've brought in different umbrellas in the business over the years, and we've brought in different revenue streams. And Bobby Kerr would be proud of me to say that. He always said to me over the years, he's always been such a really good supporter of Gourmet Food Parlour, and he always said to me, you know, you don't rely on one specific revenue stream, and he's right. But it can be difficult, you know. You're going to have one solid revenue stream, but there's nothing wrong with diversifying and bringing in a few others, and that's what we've done over the years. And I continue to see trends, you know, and changes. And a lot of people ask me, you know, what's still really on trend, and brunch.
Yeah.
It's still so on trend. But it was on trend 15 years ago. That's when it started to become so popular in Ireland. But I love it. It's such a great way to dine, you know, and that's really fascinating to me. But people's eating habits are changing. And I suppose I suppose more lifestyle choices, less alcohol, you know, more healthy living, more healthy lifestyle. And then you still have people who still love to go out and enjoy themselves too. So as a business, it's our responsibility to be able to ensure that we provide the best for every type of consumer that we feel is looking for something in Gourmet Food Parlour. But also, you can't do everything for everybody, and you have to really be very strong and confident about what you feel you can execute to a very high standard. And that's really important. We're doing a lot of research right now as to where we feel trends are going to go in 2026, what's going to be high, what's going to be low, and where do we fit into that as well.
Excellent. Sounds like it's a key part of your strategy and something that you are looking at day in, day out.
Day in, day out,
and It's funny, Bobby gave me the exact same advice as well. So there you go. Yeah.
He's the best.
What you mentioned there around being very much in the data, right? And then letting the data dictate, certain decisions. But obviously you are someone that strikes me who would also be very attuned to what their gut's telling them in a situation. I suppose I'm picturing, let's say you see a trend which is on a downward spiral, right? And it's maybe something that's been an area of the business or a product or that's always been quite well in terms of performance. How do you in that moment, detach the emotion and make the logical decision based on the facts rather than trying to kind of hold on to it for the hope that this might actually start to improve? This is probably a question for myself as well as I analyse my own business.
Brilliant question.
Yeah.
That's a really hard question, because your emotional attachment to what you've built is always going to be there. My answer to that is I always take time. So I never make a rush decision. Now, it could take me a year to make a decision about an aspect within the business, but I make no apology for that, because I've rushed into decisions before and it hasn't worked out well for me. So my learnings from that are take your time, because trends change and things come back, and sit there and observe. And interestingly, there is an area within our business that I'm really super analysing right now. And we're meeting next Monday to do a full strategy assessment on that area as a team. And I'm really interested to hear what the team have to say about it. But your team will make a decision about something with far less emotion than you will. And I respect that. I absolutely respect that. So even if it's not the same decision as mine, I will take another bit of time to go away and think about it. And if I agree, then we'll move forward. But it can be very worrying and very stressful that if you feel a part of your business is not working, where do I see myself? Where what comes into that part of the business then when it goes?
Yeah.
Is there something else? Do I have something else? And so right now I'm looking at other areas as well for us to maybe diversify into as part of that. So, but I also don't want to take away from the brand as well. So it's a conundrum.
Yeah.
It's a conundrum. I am, and I just feel you got to give yourself time, be kind to yourself, but in your gut what it is really at the end of the day. You just need to come up. It needs to come here. Yeah.
No, and I like how you've said there as well, you're thinking about the brand and protecting the brand, because it might look like a good opportunity financially, but actually does it line up with how people view and perceive the brand? Because that's the thing that's going to last long after any business owner, hopefully, if that's what they want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's the brand. What does the brand stand for? You know, that logo, when you look at it, you know, I still get a, you know, like when I see it, you know, I was driving in here today and one of the vans drove past me and I was like, oh, like that's just so, you know, that's magic. That's the magic of it all, you know.
It is. It's incredible. Last question that I have for you. And when we think about a journey of close to 20 years in business, right? And I know that you now work with other business owners. You have a consultancy, you work with other business owners. If you were to package kind of one, let's say, turning point or one lesson that for you put you on a different trajectory in terms of you as a business owner and the business itself, can you pinpoint one that you might leave our listeners with?
Well, that's a phenomenal question. I wish you'd given me a heads up on that now. I could probably give you a lot of answers. I feel the greatest change for me was when I worked with a business consultant, and it was about 2008, 2009. And the business was doing okay. It was doing fine. But I could see that there was an opportunity to take it to the next level. But I was so involved in the day-to-day, the knives and the forks and the napkins, and did that water glass, and that needs to go there, and how did Mary enjoy her antipasti, and how's Paddy, and woo! And I worked with a consultant, and she helped me to step outside the business and look from the outside in. And she said, what do you want? No, stop talking about everybody else. What do you want? What do you want for your business? And that would have been typical of me now, to be going off and thinking about what everybody else wanted. But I didn't even know, or maybe I didn't even want to ask myself, what do I want at this particular stage? But I did. And I asked myself, and there was a lot of Kleenex tissues in the middle of the table. I think I was in the middle of having one of my 3 kids. And, you know, it was an emotion. It was a hard time in a really good way, though, because I was building the business. But she helped me to realize where I wanted to go. And really, I found out I wanted to turn it into a restaurant business. I wanted the catering to grow. I wanted to become this, and this. And I admitted it. I admitted it. And I went, yes, this is what I want to do. And that was one of the many turning points for me. But that was huge. That was huge. And I look back on it now, and I still keep in touch with Jane Hogan is her name. And she sent me a message the other day, and she said, you talk about me on podcasts. And she said, and I've got new clients out of it. And she said, it's just magic to think that we were able to work on that, and it meant so much, and it's taken such value, even, you know, 12 years later. No, 17, whatever it is. Yeah. All those years later. And it did. And it really, really did. But it helped me to step into my big girl shoes and really decide where I wanted to go with the business.
It's an incredible bit of advice. I'm smiling because one of the first things that I do a lot in my leadership programs is I put that up on the screen. And I get everybody to, and you know, you'll have the cynic's eye roll. What do I want? But I think when we all actually sit with that question, there needs to be a higher level of honesty. What do I really want? Am I willing to actually say it out loud to somebody else? Because if it's not scary, well, then you've not answered it 100%, honestly.
100%. It has to be scary. You know, and I still find some decisions that I have to make scary, but that's okay. That's adrenaline. That's the buzz of it. You know, that's where we get all, you know, our get up and go for what we do every single day. Yeah. And I don't think you'd love it as much if it wasn't. No.
Lorraine Heskin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on the Lead Well podcast. As always, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.